Let's speak with John Caudwell, who, of course, is business leader, philanthropist, and founder of Phones for You. John, afternoon to you, sir. So we have a slightly more pessimistic Prime Minister and an optimistic economist on the story here. Which one are you backing?
I'm afraid I believe they're both completely wrong. First of all, from the Bank of England, yes, of course there's a recovery because we were in rock bottom. But try telling all those people that are going to be out of work, millions of people out of work, that there's a recovery. They won't feel like there's a recovery. Yeah. So I think some industries are doing okay, and yes, they will recover from the dreadful state that's been over the last 6 months. But that won't apply to the tourism or leisure industry, and they're going to be in desperate trouble. And, of course, there's going to be millions unemployed. So I think the Bank of England are absolutely wrong. If you say that in isolation, that there's a recovery, yes, there is, but that won't feel like a recovery to millions of people unemployed. So that's the main point there. The other point now on the pandemic is that I am very, very doubtful whether we need to keep these lockdowns going, because I just look at it statistically, and the death-to cases ratio in April was 18%. It's now running at 0.3%. The government have said, yes, there's more cases going into hospital now, but they produce statistics that make it look like a dreadful spike. But actually, the percentage to cases is still very, very low. And I think as long as the amount of people going into intensive care and the amount of deaths is a very, very small percentage, then I think lockdown is absolutely wrong. And at the moment, it's not that much worse than flu, and we've never panicked about flu. Yeah. So why are we really in this panicked situation over this?
It's the ultimate head-scratcher, John, isn't it, in that respect? And, Boris Johnson yesterday saying, this is the only way. I mean, that was fairly unequivocal stuff.
I know. There are a lot of statistics out there. I've been looking at a lot of reports and a lot of statistics as to why the death rate was so high in April. And of course, it is a deadly virus, and there's no doubt about that. And it's extremely destructive and it's extremely contagious. But one of the statistics that I saw was that the last 12 months has been a very, very easy year for the flu virus, and hasn't caused many deaths. And when this virus came along, it attacked all of those people that were extremely vulnerable, that had managed to live through the lack of flu virus over the last year. And of course, we weren't prepared for it. Yeah. So those people were very vulnerable. And now we've learned how to protect the vulnerable and shield the vulnerable. And I really do believe that the only way forward now is for us to develop an immunity so that we're not passing it all around, and so that the vulnerable people can then come out of hiding and get on with a normal life. So, no, I'm afraid I think we're doing it all wrongly. And of course, back to the economy, I think that's utter complacency to sit there and just say everything's fine, because we need to invest massively into our UK economy over the next few years in order to give hope to all of those unemployed people that there's going to be.
Indeed. And of course, maybe the chief economist, John, was merely trying to instill optimism. You know, as a business leader, that that confidence is absolutely, the word confidence is key to success and recovery.
Yeah, confidence is important, but optimism is very, very dangerous, because if you're optimistic, you don't end up preparing and doing something about it. The reality is that there's going to be millions unemployed, and we need to do something for those unemployed, and then we can be optimistic when we've done something positive to help them.
What do you make of it when you look at the high street? You've had a huge chain of shops on the high street in your previous life, of course, in Phones for You. You understand that area, that terrain. It's in your blood, etc. I mean, if you were dealing with this right now at the coalface, then presumably you'd have little choice but to have to shed jobs. If nobody's coming in buying products or contracts or anything like that, then as sure as night follows day, jobs go.
Yeah, absolutely. There is always pain in progress, if you can call it progress. There's pain in evolution. And, even when I was building all those shops in the UK, I was also building an online business because I knew that the time of the high street was sort of at an end, and that the high street was going to deteriorate. And that was always going to be the case. It was always going to be obvious that there was going to be less shops and less ability to buy in the high street, but it was always going to be an evolutionary situation whereby online purchases gradually took increased market share and retail high street took less market share. But of course, what this pandemic has done is forced a revolution onto the high street, and that's very destructive and very difficult for businesses to cope with and adjust to.
Yeah.
And so I'm afraid the high streets won't ever actually recover to their full buoyancy that they had pre-pandemic.
I was going to say, it wasn't in a good place pre-pandemic, of course. John,
No.
it's great to get your views on this. Thank you. You speak from an expert perspective as a business leader. John Caudwell, of course, is the philanthropist and the founder of Phones for You. He's worth a few quid because he's worked his socks off over his life and thinks the Prime Minister has got this wrong.